Slutsky equation, normal, inferior and Giffen good. So we'll be talking about the normal good, Giffen good and inferior good in terms of Slutsky equation. So if you know from the previous recordings, we have derived the substitution effect and income effect. For a recap, let me very quickly do a diagram and then I'll write about the Slutsky equation. So you have good 2 here, you have good 1 here, you have original budget line. On this original budget line, this is what your demand is, right? Price of good 1 has fallen, price of good 1 has fallen, and the demand also changes like this, demand also changes like this. So but at this point, let's say E1 is what my initial equilibrium, E2 is what my final equilibrium. So what can I write? E1 is the original demand. How do I write this? At original prices and original income. At original prices or original income. Let me just write P1 out here. E2 is what? Final demand and how do I write this? Only prices have changed, original income has not changed. So in market also you look at this only. I mean, when the price changes, it's not that your original or money income starts changing, no. And then what you did was that for the Slutsky effect or the Slutsky substitution effect, what is it that you did? You drew a fictitious budget line passing through the original consumption bundle parallel to the new budget line. So new budget line is this one. So I'll draw a fictitious budget line now. No, it doesn't look right. Maybe like this, right? Let's say this is the thing. And then here on this fictitious budget line, as you guys could see, this is passing through the original bundle and parallel to the new budget line. I'm drawing the new curve. New indifference curve. This is, let's say, E3. So E3 you can call it as an intermediate demand. Intermediate demand. This is when you're keeping the purchasing power constant. You're keeping the purchasing power constant. So this is X1 P1 dash M dash, right? X1 P1 dash M dash, right beta? So this is intermediate demand. So intermediate demand is when the prices are changing but purchasing power is being kept constant, right? Purchasing power is being kept constant. This is M dash. We have discussed all this in the earlier recordings. We also said this, that substitution effect is what? E3 minus E1. E3 minus E1. That is what substitution effect is, because if you move from point E1 to E3, what is changing is what your relative prices are changing. Purchasing power is being kept constant. So I can write what? I can write this as X1 P1 dash M dash minus X1 P1M. I can write like this. What is income effect? The movement from E3 to E2. Relative prices are kept constant. Why? Because this black and this blue line, this black fictitious budget line and this blue new budget line, they are parallel to each other. It means the relative prices are being kept constant. What is changing is what your purchasing power is changing. Right? What is changing is what? The purchasing power is changing. So it is what? At E2, you are demanding this guy. Minus the demand at E3, which is this. What is total effect? Total effect is final minus original, which is what? x1 p1 dash m minus x1 p1m, right? What is substitution effect plus income effect? These guys, x1 p1 dash m1 minus x1 p1m plus x1 p1 dash m minus x1 p1 dash m dash. Now if you look at it, don't you think that these two will cancel out? And what is left out with you? x1 p1 dash m minus x1 p1m. Which means what? This is nothing but the total effect. This is nothing but the total effect. So what you can say, this thing is called, this total change in demand, this guy is what is called the Slutsky identity. This total change in demand is equal to the sum of substitution effect and income effect. That is what the Slutsky identity is. So total change in demand is what? Final minus original. This is broken down into, okay, let me just highlight this. This total change in demand is final minus original. This is broken down into substitution effect and income effect. The sum of substitution effect and income effect. And this is nothing but is called the Slutsky identity. This is what is called Slutsky identity, and this is an identity. It is true for all values of p1, p1 dash and m dash, right? It is true for all of them. So we have already proved that substitution effect must be negative. I think from the last two recordings we have been proving this only, that substitution effect must be negative. We have proved that. Income effect, it can be positive or it can be negative. It can be positive or it can be negative. Now let us start interpreting the different kinds of goods in terms of this Slutsky identity. Normal good. What is a normal good? Normal good is the one when income increases, demand for such good will increase. When income falls, demand for such good will fall. That is a normal good. Well, for the normal good, we have already shown that substitution effect and income effect, they are moving in the same direction. Please write substitution effect. I mean, in our earlier recordings, we have already shown this, that substitution effect and income effect, they are working in the same direction. Will work in the same direction. So substitution effect is negative. It means what? That substitution effect will say if the price of the good is going to increase, the demand for that good is going to fall. Substitution effect is negative. There is no ambiguity about that. So an increase in price will mean demand will go down due to substitution effect, right? Okay, when the price is going to increase, it means that your purchasing power has fallen, right? So when purchasing power has fallen, we'll take it like a decrease in income. So what will happen is that you will be demanding less of such a good in case if it is a normal good, right? So if price goes up, it is like a decrease in income. That is decrease in purchasing power. Which for normal goods would mean decrease in demand, right? So income effect is also saying demand less. Substitution effect is also saying demand less. Let me talk about income effect once more. What is income effect saying? Price has gone up. When the price of the commodity has gone up, it is like a fall in the purchasing power. You will be demanding less of that good. Normal good says when income falls, demand less. Look at it. So Varian writes in this fashion. He says the total change in demand is equal to the substitution effect plus income effect. Substitution effect is negative. We have just written that when the price of the commodity is going to increase, demand for such a commodity is going to fall according to substitution effect. Income effect also in this case is negative. That is also negative. That is, if price of the commodity is going to increase, it is like fall in the purchasing power. When the good is a normal good, the fall in income would mean fall in demand for that good. This is also negative. This is also negative. So this has to be negative. There is no ambiguity at all. So both effects reinforce each other. Both effects reinforce each other. That's one thing, right? Then you have what? Inferior good. One is inferior good. Inferior good means what? When income of such a good is going to increase, demand for such a good is going to fall. Right? Not income for such a good. When your income is going to increase, when income of an individual is going to increase, demand for such a good is going to fall. Right? That is what the inferior good is. Giffen good, if price of the good is going to increase, you will demand more of such a good. That is a given good. Right? So inferior good is that when income is going to increase, demand for such a good is falling. As income increases, demand for such a good falls. Normal goods, when income increases, demand for such a good will increase. Achha, what are given goods? As price increases, it's an exception to the law of demand. Demand says what? Law of demand says what? For all the other goods, ordinary goods, When price of the commodity will increase, demand for such a good will fall. Here, when the price is increasing, demand for such a good is increasing. That is what Giffen good is. Now coming back to our Slutsky thing. Think about it. You have delta x1, that is the total change in demand, is equal to the substitution effect plus income effect. Whether the good is a normal good or an inferior good or a Giffen good, substitution effect will always be negative. No problem with that. But there are possibilities. There are possibilities that for some kind of inferior goods, income effect might outweigh the substitution effect. Right? Income effect might outweigh the substitution effect. In case of normal goods, they were both reinforcing each other. Here, in case of inferior goods, it might be possible that there is a wrong sign for the income effect. Let us see how, what might happen. So there can be a positive sign for the income effect for some kind of goods. Now, if this positive is going to outweigh, if income effect outweighs the substitution effect, then the sign for delta x1 is going to be positive right now, because there is a positive income effect. It is outweighing the negative substitution effect. So the sign for the total effect is going to be positive. What do you mean by that? Total effect is what? When the price is increasing, how the demand for the good is changing. Here it is saying what? When price is increasing, demand for such a good is going to increase. So when income effect outweighs the substitution effect, this is the case of a Giffen good. This is the case of a Giffen good. Increase in price can result in increase in demand. If income effect, although you have a wrong sign of the income effect here, but if income effect is less than substitution effect, so if positive income effect is less than the negative substitution effect, then the ultimate sign for the total effect is going to be negative. The ultimate sign for the total effect is going to be negative. These are inferior goods. These are inferior good. You with me? You with me, beta? Inferior good doesn't say this that your price of the commodity is increasing, the demand for such a commodity is going to increase, right? It has to be a very inferior good in terms of Giffen good, where it will happen that the price of the commodity is increasing, then demand for such a commodity is going to increase. That is the idea. Let us go a little deeper. Price has increased, means purchasing power has fallen, and when purchasing power has fallen, you have compelled yourself, I mean, that fall in purchasing power has compelled yourself too much that now you can only consume inferior commodity. Are you with me? So what has happened is this, that is, what has happened is this, an increase in price has decreased the purchasing power so much so that he has increased the consumption of inferior good. Although price has increased, but your demand for inferior good is increasing. So that is a Giffen good. So Giffen good is a very inferior good, not only inferior. It has to be very inferior. So Giffen good is also an inferior good, but inferior good may not be a Giffen good. So Giffen good will be an inferior good, yes. And how do you know that Giffen good is an inferior good? Because for both Giffen good and inferior good, income effect is positive, right? But for Giffen goods, income effect is outweighing the substitution effect. That's an idea, right? So please write that. Giffen good must be an inferior good. But an inferior good is not necessarily a Giffen good. Is not necessarily a Giffen good. You with me? Both income effect both in case of inferior good or a Giffen good, income effect has a positive sign. Means what? Income effect has a wrong sign, right? So means both the goods are inferior. But not only that, that wrong income effect sign has to outweigh the substitution effect, the correct substitution effect sign, in order to good becoming a Giffen good. So that good can become a Giffen good. You're getting what I'm saying? What I'm saying is this, beta. If you look at it, beta, this is the wrong sign of the income effect. Wrong sign of the income effect. This is, you can say, the correct sign of the income effect. This is correct sign of substitution effect. Beta. So income effect says what? Price of the good has increased, purchasing power has fallen. If purchasing power has fallen, if the good is an inferior good, means income has decreased, your demand for such a good has to increase. That is what income effect means, is positive out here, right? In general, for most of the goods, we don't look at the Giffen goods and all, or the inferior good. What is happening out here is this wrong sign of the income effect has to outweigh the correct sign of the substitution effect. Then only even an inferior good will become the Giffen good. That's an idea. So that is what Varian is saying, and I really like the line which he has written. The income effect not only has to be of the wrong sign, but it also has to outweigh the right sign of substitution. It's a beautiful line which he has written. So, and one more line which he has written is beautiful. He says, Giffen goods not only have to be inferior good, but they also have to be very inferior. Very, very nice line. Giffen goods. They also have to be very inferior. So this is what I wanted to do in this recording, but I'm really sorry. You might be thinking that why is taking so much of time to explain all this. My intention is that you might be writing notes alongside me, and then you will be reading book also alongside. So the reference for this is Varian chapter 8, I guess. Varian chapter 8, that's the reference. So please do this. Thank you beta. Bye bye.